Welcome back to English Book Club. When I was younger, an amazing new talent appeared in the English music scene, and her name was Kate Bush. She's still famous for being an unusual and highly creative writer and musician, and her first major hit song was called Wuthering Heights. In the song, you will hear her say these words: Heathcliff, it's me, Cathy, I've come home. And she also says this: ooh, let me have it, let me grab your soul away. The whole feeling of the song is dark, chilling, maybe a bit creepy for some, but what is she talking about? Well, it's actually one of her favourite books, which is called Wuthering Heights, and it was written by Emily Bronte and published in 1847. It's now considered a famous classic of English literature, and we're going to look at it in a little bit more detail. And we're going to think a bit more about these two words which are popular in analysing fiction: context and setting, as these two ideas are massively important in the world of Wuthering Heights. But first, a brief plot summary. In modern terms, you'd maybe call it a sad love triangle. For the time it was written, the intensity of this story shocked Victorian society. There's love and romance, yes, but it's also very destructive. There's a lot of unrequited love, sadness, anger, cruelty, revenge, and tragedy. Oh, and by the way, no, I'm not going to tell you exactly what happens in it, because maybe you could read it and find out. So the context for this story is that of a girl living in quite sedate Georgian, almost Victorian times, who was probably expected to be more of a lady than she was. Now, just in case you didn't know, British history between 1837 and 1901 is named after the famous British Queen, Queen Victoria. Here she is. Georgian society that came before is similarly named after several different King Georges. And society at around this time, of course, was quite different then. Life was very much concerned with good manners, your place in society. There was a much stronger Christian ethic that influenced daily life, and a very definite class system. Love affairs were considered quite shocking if they didn't lead to marriage. Young girls could be considered ruined if they associated with the wrong sort of man and didn't marry into the right place in their society. And there was a lot of pressure on women to lead perfect, amiable lives as wives and mothers, which maybe didn't quite suit everyone and what they wanted to do. For a woman, to me, it feels quite repressive compared to what we have in many Western societies now. So you have the main character, Cathy, who has to deal with these traditional expectations. And added to the love triangle are two male characters. First, Heathcliff, who Cathy loves, but he's also dark, dangerous, brooding, easy to anger, a little bit cruel. All the things that women of this time were expected to avoid. But of course, who doesn't love a bad boy? So, as a result, he appears deeply attractive. And then, added to this, you have another character, Edgar, who's representing everything that a woman should want. A good, safe, kind man who's likely to be an excellent husband. So that's the context of what was expected of women at the time. Now, which way do you think Cathy will go? Now let's think about the setting. Setting is the word which means the place or general location of where something happens. And you'll quite often see this in a test question asking about books or films, because the setting absolutely influences everything. It affects how people speak and behave, how they work and live their lives, their expectations of each other, and what they might do or what might happen as a result. So it's crucial to many stories. Now, one of the things that readers love about Wuthering Heights is the setting, because it takes place on the Yorkshire moors. This is an area in the north of England which is wild, open moorland. It's very remote and empty. It's considered very beautiful, but it's also quite high, rocky and windy. It's quite exposed to the weather, so it's also dangerous in bad weather or if you are lost. And this is where our story takes place. And the importance of the setting in this novel is that it can drive the story along and have a big effect on it. So the wildness of the setting and those feelings of danger and intensity become represented and mixed up in the struggle of the people of the story. Now, at the time of writing, it's known that Emily Bronte was strongly influenced by two popular cultural movements of the time. One was called Romanticism. Here's a little description of it. You can read all about it on Wikipedia or other websites. And this strong interest in the landscape to represent people's emotions comes through very clearly in the novel. And the other was called the Gothic novel. And again, here's a brief description. And these were all the rage back in those days, as everyone enjoyed scary stories. Now again, that's still popular, but you'll find that most of our enduring horror stories, such as Dracula and Frankenstein, they all come from the Victorian era. So I promise more about that in another video. So back to Wuthering Heights. Emily Bronte was one of three now famous sisters who actually lived in a remote area of the Yorkshire moors, and she wrote about what she knew. If you're in the area, Bronte fans can visit the Bronte Parsonage Museum in Haworth and get a feeling of what it was like to live in those days and see the kind of landscapes that inspired her writing. If you think this kind of story is for you, the original novel would be a difficult read if you're learning English, but part of it could be rewarding. There's also a smaller graded reader version. This would be easy to read, but my feeling is that although the language is easy, it rather sucks out quite a lot of the emotion and beauty of the original writing. If you'd just like to see a TV version to understand the story, there are a few different made-for-film or TV adaptations. For example, this version, made in 1939, starring Laurence Olivier and Merle Oberon. Now, if you watch this version, it will seem very old-fashioned, but beautifully well spoken, so it might be easier to understand the English. And after all, these were famous actors in their day. There's also an interesting made-for-TV adaptation starring Tom Hardy, which captured the intensity of emotion that is in the novel. I would like to leave you with the words of Emily Bronte from one of the most famous dialogues in the book, where Cathy talks to her confidant, Nellie, about her love for two different men and what it means to her. If you like this language, then maybe you'll like this tragic love story. So this is what Cathy says. It would degrade me to marry Heathcliff now, so he shall never know how I love him, and that not because he's handsome, Nelly, but because he's more myself than I am. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. And Edgar's is as different as a moonbeam from lightning, or frost from fire. My love for Linton is like the foliage in the woods. Time will change it, I'm well aware, as winter changes the trees. My love for Heathcliff resembles the eternal rocks beneath, a source of little visible delight, but necessary. Nelly, I am Heathcliff. I hope you like the glimpse of poetic language from Emily Bronte. Let me know in the comments below. See you next time.